I'm Allison Jonjak, the Cranberry Outreach Specialist with the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension. These videos are the on-demand recordings of UW Extension and the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association's virtual brown bag lunch series. These monthly sessions offer growers and researchers a way to share timely and relevant information. We hope you'll enjoy and continue to engage with us.
Hi, I'm Tom Lochner, the Executive Director of the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association. We're excited to be a partner with Extension to bring you research-backed resources, tools, and tips to keep Wisconsin marshes productive and profitable.
And we'll go ahead and dive in. Good morning, and thanks for joining us to the March brown bag. It is March, I believe, 15th today, and we are looking to have our first kind of growing season brown bag. I know the original schedule had been for for Amaya Atucha to give her nutrient and water up translocation into berries talk that was pushed forward from Cranberry School. She had to fly out of the country real quickly for a medical question with her folks. But luckily we've got Josh Nomura and myself to fill those shoes. Dr. Mura's got some information on spring flooding and dissolved oxygen. I'm going to give some information on transpiration and a couple of grower polls on weather and water. I'd work with Amaya to get some things that will be topical. And then Alyssa Foss of DATCP is going to be joining us, as is customary for our March brown bag, to go over worker protection and safety and the best ways to pass an audit in case you get an audit. So I think I will kick off the morning by letting Tom give us a good afternoon, and then we'll dive into the content.
Yeah, thanks, Allison, and good afternoon to everybody. It's been a busy week this week. As many of the growers know, we've had a couple of important board meetings this week. The Wisconsin Cranberry Board held their budget meeting on Wednesday, and it was a very informational meeting. We had good presentations, good discussion by the board, and they developed what I think is a very strong budget that we'll be releasing next week after the Cranberry Institute meeting. I think everybody's going to be pretty happy with the decisions that the board made. We've also, just to let the growers know, that the WSCGA is working hard on with a search committee to find a person to step into the role as executive director as I move out and retire this summer. They do have 2 finalists, and they'll have them in the state the first week of April, and that process is moving along very well. I think I'm talking with the board members. They're very excited about the candidates they have and about the future of the organization, as am I. So I'll turn it back over to you, Allison. Just want to thank all of our speakers today for joining us, and the growers who are online, and also Allison for putting the program together.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I think without further ado, we can pass things off to, I guess I already kind of gave the agenda in advance. I'm gonna then hand things off to Alyssa.
Thank you for having me on this Friday.
And we're always grateful to have Alyssa. It's good to have good allies within DATCP, and relationships that continue from year to year to help us make sure that we've got everything we need to both keep people safe and prove that we're keeping people safe.
Well, thanks again for having me. I was asked today to just give a quick overview of the WPS program that most cranberry growers are required to keep with their employees. First of all, I'd like to say, we've always inspected a handful of cranberry growers every year. A lot of those inspections come back looking fabulous with the audits, so can't thank you enough, and I'm sure your employees appreciate the additional safety measures you guys are taking. But just as you're looking to start your WPS program, make sure you got everything ready for this season. We're just going to cover a few things here today. So what triggers WPS is looking at a pesticide product label that you would use on your cranberry bog. So I have one here, for example. This is just a general product label, whether you guys know it or use it or not. But when you're looking at the pesticide product label, what you want to keep an eye out for under the directions for use is the agricultural use requirements box. This is what's going to trigger WPS program to be in place at your establishment. And so what you see on the pesticide product label is it gives the quick standard federal language in that first paragraph. And then the second or third paragraph are where you're going to find the restricted entry interval, as well as PPE if someone were required to enter the use area before that REI has expired. So please keep in mind that sometimes this PPE can be different than the general PPE you would see on a pesticide product label. So just make sure you're reviewing both areas. But if you were to come across us, a DATCP inspector asking to do an inspection or an audit of your WPS program, they're going to focus on about 6 key areas. And then we also will talk about possibly doing like a handler or worker interview with one of your employees just to make sure all the information checks out. So what we're going to focus on today are the 6 key areas of having a WPS program in place. So to start, just to give you guys a quick overview, we do have 14 environmental enforcement specialists that are located across the state of Wisconsin. So depending on which county you're located in, you will have a different inspector. So I would just like to advise that, you know, don't feel free if you guys have any questions to either contact myself or one of the inspectors that are located in your area. I do have the link on this slide where you can find their contact information. So if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. We are more than happy to come out and check on your WPS program or any other questions you have prior to like doing an inspection. I always like people to be proactive with us because then we can, you know, answer truthfully, honestly, review, versus when we are showing up on our own merit to conduct the inspection, we have to wear a little bit of a different regulatory hat. But if you guys are asking us proactively, it's full on compliance assistance. So just continue to keep that in mind. But the first part of WPS, if you are using products that carry that agricultural use requirements box, and then also what triggers WPS is that you have employees, workers, and handlers that will be present within 30 days of that application taking place. So the handlers are the ones that are using the pesticide products, doing the mixing, loading, and applying. And then workers are the ones coming in to work with the crop within that 30 days of the pesticide application. So if you fall into that category, you do need a WPS program. So one of the things we look at is what we call a central location information. This is the area that you will hang I call it the iconic WPS safety poster. You see it as item number 3 on the graph. And then where you're going to log your pesticide application information. So we'll cover what's required on the next slide here. But then with the central location, it is required that you have available the pesticide product labels as well as the safety data sheets in case an employee or someone were to need to use that information in a medical situation. So the application information, so this record of the application should be made as soon as possible after that pesticide application has been made. We typically tell people they have within 24 hours to get it made available. So essentially the record of application that should be posted at your central location should be obviously the crop that it's treated on, you know, where was that application taking place? So if you guys have like a map that you use with your cranberry bogs, each bog is identified by a different number or SKU. You can use that to identify then on your record of application that this was in, you know, bog 3, bog 4, 5, what have you. Just make sure that everyone is under the same understanding of how to interpret the location. And then it should also include the pesticide product name, EPA registration number, active ingredients. That's information you can get from the pesticide product label along with the re-entry interval. And then common things we see missing from application records, and this is just beyond cranberry growers, but a lot of what we see with application growers with application information is a lot of times people are missing the date of the application as well as start and stop time. So just make sure If you're going to go back and look at your application records, that you got both the date of the application as well as the start and stop time listed. The next part of WPS is making sure everyone partakes in an annual safety training, both for workers and handlers. The requirement of a safety training is that a certified applicator does need to be the one to conduct or host the training. If you do not have anyone certified on site, you can use an EPA train the trainer course is what it's called. And I can get you information on that. But generally, we see in the state of Wisconsin, a lot of people having a certified applicator on hand that will then conduct the training for the employees. But essentially, the requirement of it is that you have to have employees watch an EPA approved training video, and you can find those at PERC, which is pesticideresources.org. A lot of people like to use the videos that are made, but there's also available like flip charts and PowerPoints. And then once you have conducted the training for your employees, just make sure that they are completing a training record form. So on the form, you should have the name of the worker as well as their address and their signature, the date the training took place, the trainer name and what their qualification was. So if they're a certified applicator, you would write down their certification number, employer name, as well as the training material used. So if you're using one of the PERC videos from the pesticideresources.org, just make sure you are logging. Each video has a number with it. So make sure that you are just writing down that number. And if anyone has interacted with our DATCP webpage before, there is a dedicated site for worker protection. If you go on to the DATCP webpage, you would be able to find that. And within that site, we have directly linked to pesticideresources.org. We also have example training record forms as well as easy application information forms. So that way you're not missing any information, and feel free to use those forms, because if you have them fully filled out, you're compliant with us. So then you know you're good to go. The next part about this is after PPE, making sure that you are providing a decontamination site as well as supplies for your workers. So this is going to be an area that after using the chemicals or the pesticides that they can clean off essentially. So just a reminder, each worker, you are required to provide 1 gallon of water per worker along with soap and single-use towels. And then handlers would have 3 gallons of water with soap and single-use towels, and then they should provide their own change of clothes. You do not have to do that. And then if possible, in the mix and load area, have an eye wash station. But if you do not have one of the fancy eye wash stations, make sure you have on hand 6 gallons of water. And then while the application is taking place, the applicator should have readily available a pint of water in case they need to do an eye flush. So the location of the decontamination site should be within a 1/4 mile of the nearest vehicle access or site entry. It should be outside of the area of pesticide application. That would be under a restricted entry interval. Make sure obviously that it is at any mix and load site. And then, like I said, this is just a place for removing PPE as well as changing clothes if needed. So restricted entry interval posting requirements. So after you have made your pesticide application, you find on the pesticide label under that agriculture use requirements box, it will list what the PPE is. So what you need to keep in mind is, depending on the type of operation you have, whether you need to post the restricted entry sign, or if you need to give your employees a verbal warning that an application has taken place. And yes, this is in addition to posting the application record on your central location information site. So some pesticides, generally we see these a lot with restricted use products, will carry what's called a dual notice. And instead of listing an REI, it will say that it is a dual notice pesticide. This means that not only do you have to post the hazard sign at the site of application, but you also need to verbally inform your employees of the pesticide application that took place. If you are doing outdoor production, which most cranberry bogs are. If the product has a restricted entry interval that is greater than 48 hours, it is required that you post the do not enter sign at the cranberry bog that had the application. If the REI is less than or equal to 48 hours, you do have the option to either post the sign, or you can verbally inform your workers where that application took place. So these are what the restricted entry interval signs look like. It's just the typical danger keep out sign. Signs do need to be put up prior to the application starting. So right before you turn on that boom sprayer or whatnot, make sure you have that sign posted. And then they need to be taken down within 3 days of that REI expiring. If you have what we've seen are permanent signs located around your bogs, just make sure that if an REI is not in effect, that those signs are being covered up. The reason they need to be covered up and not just present at all, we've seen people try to use them as no trespassing signs, even though that is not allowed. You do need to cover up those signs or take them down, because if they are up 24/7 and visible, it becomes things that people just don't see and pay attention to anymore. And then they're being ignored, or there's confusion of whether these signs are actually like truly in effect for what their purpose is. So just make sure you are following that of putting them up and taking them down appropriately. So if someone needs to use a respirator, pretty much you just need to complete an annual medical evaluation and fit test. Keep the record of that fit test for 2 years. Always inspect your respirators, make sure it is not damaged, make sure that cartridges are being replaced after 8 hours of use. If breathing becomes difficult, obviously, check and inspect it. And same goes for replacing it if you start to have like an odor, taste, irritation occurs. And then make sure you are wearing the proper respirator per the product label if it does require one. And a lot of these reminders go in place also for just general personal protective equipment. Make sure that you are reviewing any gloves you have to wear, boots, clothing, make sure there's no tears and rips. Always keep that in place. So that is pretty much all I had. Like I said, we've always had great compliance with our cranberry growers. So I cannot thank you guys enough for running a well-organized WPS program. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Something I will put in a plug that you might start to see is if you have had a inspection from us within the last like 5 to 7 years, a new endeavor we will be implementing this year is starting like an online, it's going to come out via email, WPS newsletter throughout the growing season. And so essentially what this is it's going to be a quick email you guys receive from myself with just general WPS reminders. And feel free to, there will be like a subscription option, on the bottom of that email. So if you don't want the emails, you can click unsubscribe. But pretty much I've just gone through the past inspections we've had and have voluntarily signed everyone up that we have email addresses for. So if you get an email from us, don't be alarmed of like, why am I receiving this? It's just because you've had a past WPS inspection with us. And this is a new outreach endeavor that we are looking to do. Also, if you don't receive one from us in the next couple months, but you would like to be part of it, feel free to send myself an email and I can get you added to that list. But that is just something new to watch out for with WPS. Other than that, I don't have any updates directly from the EPA as far as changes to the WPS rule. I know every now and again they talk about making changes to the rule, but we have not seen any that would apply for the 2024 season. So that is all I have, Allison.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Feel free to add me to that that email.
Oh, yes.
And that way
I will.
when growers
Sounds
see
good.
something go out, I'll know that it's happening too. If you have any questions for Alyssa, feel free to drop those in the chat or unmute yourself and ask, or go ahead and email myself or her. Go ahead and follow up with me afterward if you have specific questions on specific presenters though.